What is up, all you individuals out there? It's me, full-time anime man, and I'm here with part 11, I think. Part 11 of What If Deku Was a Firewolf. So, yeah, before I get started with this What If, there was something that I would like to add in. First is a recap because, this story's been going on for 9 months and I've been barely finishing it, barely getting to it. I feel like the story needs a recap. So, in this story, Izuku was born with a sort of transformation quirk and a fire elemental quirk. When his quirk activated, it was in his classroom of kindergarten at the age of 4. The doctors told him that he had an unstable quirk and that he had to learn to control his fear and emotions. Endeavor heard about the boy with the fire ability, and he took him under his wing. He, along with Shoto and Bakugo, trained together under Endeavor's wing for 10 years. And during those 10 years, Izuku has been neglecting his wolf side abilities for a long time. At the time that he actually thought about using it, he found himself unable to change, for he felt like for he had lost it. And one night he had a dream, and it was his wolf telling him to come find him in the beast forest, and Izuku went. After a few trials and a forest fire later, Izuku had regained his wolf abilities. The wolf had fused itself permanently with his fire quirk, and Izuku was able to do more with both abilities. And so, after going through the trials of the entrance exams, Izuku then found himself in danger at the USJ and was critically injured by a Nomu. Izuku had temporarily died after the Nomu heard it. Izuku then died after the Nomu injured him badly, and in the afterlife he met the Phoenix, the bird of prey, the bird of fire, as they call it. The Phoenix decided to help Izuku for his kind heart and his desperation to want to save people. The Phoenix then gave Izuku a little bit of its power to take down the Nomu, and after all was said and done, the Phoenix then helped Izuku recover his body so that he was able to go back to school. And in the 4th sports festival, Bakugo was victorious in first place after he had to do a 3-person fight between his 2 companions that he's been training with. And then some more time would have passed, and Izuku would take shelter in the woods, and Bakugo and Shoto would assist him just in case he ends up using his fire quirk whenever he would werewolf out. But before that, he asked for assistance of Mei Hatsume to make him some contact lenses that would hide the moon from his sight. They seemed to have worked for a while, but then the League of Villains had their Nomus attack their city. The boys jumped in, but at the same time, Iida was in danger with the hero killer Stain. During Stain's and Izuku's fight, Izuku was badly injured that the contact lenses that he was wearing was knocked out of their place, and he was forcefully staring at the full moon while lying on his back. Izuku then transformed into his hulking beast, and he took down Stain by ripping his tongue out and badly wounding him, breaking his ribs in the process. Izuku, after waking up, knew that he had to find a way to control his beast. And so, there's another obstacle for him. But before that, Izuku bit Iida giving him werewolfism. Although Iida is a low rank right now, he is a private in first class, able to turn into a wolf, but not being able to turn into a werewolf like Zuko, for it is like military rank. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into the story. Hope y'all enjoy. You know what? Actually, before I get this story started, there's something that I wanted to add. This was something that I wanted to put in before Bakugo, Izuku, and Shoto's fight in the sports festival. You see, before their fight, I think that Izuku and Shoto would kind of have a sentimental moment. Like, Shoto would take Izuku to a private area, and, he would talk to him, and he would actually thank him for being a part of his life. And he would actually reminisce about the time that he told him that this fire quirk is something of his own and not his father's. He would say that while a flashback was being ensued when Izuku said that, "It's like my mom always told me. This fire isn't someone else's, it's yours." When the flashback would end, I think Izuku would smile and he would say, "Hey, it's my pleasure." And I think that's where their fight would begin. But also, at the end of it, I recall reading a comment where someone said, "Why did Izuku and Shoto get third place when Momo should have gotten it?" And I was like, "Yeah, you're absolutely right about that." I guess I just thought at that moment. I don't know what I was thinking at that moment, but anyway, yeah. Izuku and Shoto got second place, while Yaoyorozu got third place. So now, let's really get into the story. Hope you all enjoy. Now, in the cafeteria, they weren't informed that they will be fighting robots, but instead, they will be more on their toes and be ready for whatever their teachers throw at them. When the time came, they met outside of the building for the practical exam, and almost every teacher in UA was outside awaiting for them, including All Might. "Good morning, young heroes. I hope you're all ready for today, because you will be doing a test." "Good morning, young heroes. I hope you're all ready for today's test, because today you will be going up against us in a fight or escape battle. We will be playing the villains, while you, the students, will be playing the heroes. And and to assure that we do not go all out, we will be wearing these specialized bracelets that will hold back our power so that we do not go all out. Is everyone ready?" Everyone nods their heads, and since they brought their A game with them, I think that Mina and Denki's test might go a little different. They know that Principal Nezu is highly intelligent, so they know that they can't outthink him, and they think of like as many possibilities as they can, and using their surroundings to their advantage, perhaps. Anyway, things would go like it did in the show. Principal Nezu would be using the wrecking ball to cause their surroundings to fall. They run around for a minute. They run around for a while. And then they see that their principal is causing a sort of chain reaction in one small area. Now, it's hard to outthink someone who is smarter than you, but being smart is not just all about being intelligent. Lord knows that even the smartest people in the world have made dumb decisions. Incredibly smart people are also prone to moments of idiocy, but they do tend to act smart most of the time. What they should do is that they should be more focused on their opponent and less of themselves. And so, that's what they do. Taking into consideration right now, they took in their surroundings and know that Nezu is using a machine to operate it, obviously. And they would actually come across a sort of power plant. And Denki would get an idea and he would tell Mina to stay put while he goes and execute. He runs towards the power conduit while using while things are falling around him, excuse me. He then comes in contact with the power conduit and frying its circuit and everything that is in the city, including the wrecking ball machine that Nezu was controlling. But at the last second, Denki was buried underneath some rubble, and Mina tried to help him get out, but he told her, but he tells her to just leave him and go after Nezu. Mina does this, and after a few seconds, she finds Nezu desperately trying to get the machine moving again. In a panic, he's like, What's going on? Why did this happen? This wasn't a part of the plan. This wasn't part of the plan. Mina sees that he is distracted and uses her acid to melt away these supports. The machine falls down and Principal Nezu crawls out. Don't worry, he's okay. And in doing so, she puts the cuffs on him and she claims victory. Everyone, including the teachers, were surprised that the smartest person in their school was outmatched by kids. President Mike says, it looks like Principal Nezu is going soft on us. He said that over the intercom, and Principal Nezu said, I heard that. Some time would pass, and everyone's tests would go the same, except for Ojiro and Iida's, in their fight with Power Loader. They would be in the same scenario where they would be trapped on a desert spot in the center of the battlefield, unable to move, for if they did touch the ground that was off their island, the ground from underneath that spot that they would touch would sink and they would fall in. Ojiro suggests that they try leaving, but Iida has an idea. But before he goes through with it, he looks to the camera and he nods, knowing that Izuku is watching, and Izuku nods back. Iida then takes off his helmet, his chest plate, he's taking off his armor right now. What are you doing? Asked Ojiro. I'm going to try something that Midoriya taught me. He then kneels down and he turns into his wolf form with exhaust pipes on the back of each of his legs. They all watch in amazement as Iida changes right before their eyes. And for those who were not in the and for those who were watching from the same room that Izuku was in, they mostly stared at him, wondering. They had a look of like, how? But Izuku just said, yep, he can do it too. They look back at the screen and continue to watch. Ojiro stands there in bewilderment and says, Iida, is that you? Iida nods his head, and then he howls, calling on allies. FYI, Iida does not have a sort of elemental quirk, so these are just straight up clones of himself that appear from him. Iida, along with his clones, run around. Luckily, they are moving fast enough before the ground crumbles from underneath them. But they would... Wait a minute. Power Loader was confused of what was going on, and he was running out of space to dig, and thought, okay, it looks like I'll have to bring the fight to them. And so he did that. He brought his robot and himself up to the surface, but when he popped out, he was outnumbered by a dozen wolves. Oh crap, said Power Loader. Iida, along with his wolves, then lunged at Power Loader, They started biting and tearing his machine apart, and at one point, Iida found the steering fluid that allowed him to move his arms and the wheels of his robot, making him completely immobilized. Iida then got directly into Powerloader's face, and Powerloader was scared as hell. And he says, okay, I surrender. You win. And with that, Iida and Ojiro's are victorious. Obviously, some people are going to ask Izuku how he's able to do that, and Izuku would say nothing. And now it was time for Izuku and Bakugo's fight with All Might. But before that happened, as Izuku was walking down the hall to go to his arena, Tokoyami met with Izuku outside. He said, Midoriya, I remembered what you said about you being a werewolf at a full moon. I take it that Iida has werewolfism and you bit him. Izuku just nodded his head, saying, yeah, I did. Tokoyami just closed his eyes and he says, it's fine. I'm not holding anything against you. I just want you to know that everything's alright. Izuku just nods his head again and he walks off. Izuku and Bakugo are on their mark. They think that they can take All Might, but of course, it's going to be no walk in the park. But luckily, they spent years watching him and learning his moves and all. The two boys would look around for All Might, and soon they would come across him guarding the exit. They waste no time. They charge at All Might, and he smirks. And then he charges back at them. Soon the three boys meet in the middle, and Izuku said, now Bakugo. Bakugo then leaped out of range of All Might, getting behind him, and All Might threw a punch at Izuku, but Izuku caught both of his hands in midair with a lot of struggle. Bakugo would then throw an explosion at All Might's back, throwing him completely off guard, and Izuku would deliver a knee to his stomach, incapacitating him for a second. They see their opening, and the boys go haywire. They go buck wild. They go the chicken without its head. You know what I'm saying. They're going nuts. They're throwing their most powerful moves at him, but Bakugo spares both of his gauntlets. After a minute of throwing explosions and fire at All Might then stood up, and then he did a clap that resembled a thunderous clap of the gods. It threw the boys back. They did a few flips and twists. And when they got up, standing right in front of them was All Might, with a devilish grin on his face. Izuku and Bakugo gasped before All Might grabbed them, and he threw them against the wall, cracking the concrete. When it happened, a very unwanted memory flooded Izuku's mind at that moment. That day when the Nomu fatally wounded him. But it was only a quick glance before he was brought back into reality. Izuku and Bakugo were having trouble getting up because when they were flying, it messed up their backs very badly. But they persevered and got up. The pretend villain, quote unquote, approached them, but Bakugo let off an explosion that distracted All Might long enough for them to make their daring escape. Or just an ordinary escape. What am I talking about? They hide in an alley. Damn it, my back, said Bakugo. Yeah, mine too. Man, we knew he was strong, but he freaking wrecked us. Izuku then takes a deep breath and says, it seems we have no choice. We have to escape. I'm gonna go cause a distraction, and you run for it. What? No way. I'm not leaving you alone with him. Bakugo, we don't have a choice. Our backs are messed up, and I used up a lot of my fire. And I can tell by the shaking in your hands, you're about at your limit of using your explosions. We both can't fight. We're in no condition to do so. Izuku sighs and says, listen, I'm willing to destroy myself to assure your safety, just like I did at the USJ. Bakugo gets a millisecond flashback to when he saw Izuku lying on the ground, bloody and beaten with... When he snapped back into reality, Izuku says, it's what heroes do. A smile comes across his face, but Bakugo just grins his teeth, grunting, and he says, ugh, no way, we're not giving up yet. We can still fight. We just gotta learn to fight through the pain. We just need to come up with a plan. He looks at Izuku, and his gauntlets give out the sign that they're ready. And then he gets an idea. And I know just what to do, he said. A few minutes would pass, and All Might would hear a familiar explosion in the distance. Bakugo using his gauntlets. Gotcha, said All Might. He runs where he heard the sound from, and he turns the corner to an open road to see Bakugo with his arms crossed, standing there all by himself. All Might says, and what had happened to your best friend? Did he bail on you? Oh well, I'll deal with him when I cross that bridge. This should be easy. Prepare yourself, hero. All Might then charges at the boy, and when he gets closer, Bakugo then yelled, now! All Might stopped when he heard the familiar howls. From above, he saw what appeared to be at least 100 wolves just on top of the roofs, looking directly at him. All Might stared in bewilderment, and he backed up a little bit. All Might stared in bewilderment, and he backed up. Attack, said Izuku. They all jumped in and from the rooftop, and they landed on All Might, biting him, leaving bite marks and burn marks. All Might tries to fight back by ripping them off of him, but every time he did that, there would be another wolf to take its place. The temperature around All Might's body started to escalate, but then, using the power that the bracelets will allow him to provide, he then jolts up forward with his hands upwards, and then, battering his hands back, he then does another thunderous clap that causes all the wolves to fly away from him. All Might was about to let off another one, but then Izuku caught him, putting him in a chokehold. All Might would try to put his arms in between... All Might would try to put his fingers in between Izuku's arms, but he couldn't quite do so, for Izuku really had a tight grip on him. He squeezed his neck harder and harder, hoping to put him to sleep. Bakugo stands there waiting for his opening. But then, All Might started slamming his back into the ground and walls that were near him to get Izuku off of him, but to no avail. The hits were even more hurtful to Izuku than before, but Izuku felt strongly determined, telling himself, I have to win. I can't lose. I won't let go. Izuku felt his back was about to snap into two, but then he ordered what was left of his wolves to run in a circle around him and All Might, causing a fire tornado. All Might felt the heat around him building up once again, and he felt like he was going to pass out. And so, in a desperation as to not lose, All Might then reach behind Izuku with both hands, grabbing him on the sides of his torso and slamming him down to the ground. Cracking the concrete from underneath. When he did it, it caused a huge gush of wind that blew the tornado away. He then did it again, taking Izuku's body and then slamming it down to the ground again and again and again. Bakugo stares in horror as the flashback of that day filled his head. And as for Izuku, he can remember that day in great detail. He remembers his bones breaking and him being tossed around and the look on Bakugo's face when it happened. At that moment, Izuku lost control and his unstable fire quirk activated. All Might let go of him the very second that his body flamed on. The burn was so high that All Might's hands were red and they were blistering. He then looked back to Izuku, who was standing up. His eyes were glowing red, and he was standing there with furious anger in his eyes. There was nothing left of Izuku but pure hatred and fury. Izuku then stood there. Izuku then brought the fire to his fists as the rest of his body was engulfed in minimal fire. Looking at All Might, he then lunged at him and began to land a few blows on All Might. Each blow was devastating than the last on the number one hero. With each spot that Izuku punched him, it would burn away his clothes and it would leave horrid burn marks of where Izuku punched him. Bakugo watches in horror. He's never seen his best friend like this before. He then sees that All Might, then laying on the ground, started to spit out his own blood. And if there was one way that I had to describe that beatdown, it would be something like this. Oh no, he's gonna kill him if I don't do something. He quickly blinks twice and then he gets an idea. Looking down to his only gauntlet that he had left, because he had to use the other one to help Izuku refuel on his fire. That explains the explosion from earlier. Bakugo then aimed it right behind him with one hand on the pin. He then yelled, "Izuku! Don't make me do this!" Izuku then battered his arm back, ready to deliver the final blow as his arm was engulfed and the fire around him started to grow brighter and brighter to deliver the final blow. Bakugo pulled the pin and then his gauntlet went off, rocketing him towards Izuku. He did a few flips and turns before having his right foot meet behind Izuku's head, knocking him out. When he did it, Bakugo did a few flips and spins as he fell to the ground. When he stopped, he quickly regained his composure and ran over to where Izuku and All Might were. He quickly checked Izuku, making sure he was okay. I mean, his suit kind of reached the limit on its fire resistant, but Izuku was fine. But as for All Might, he didn't look so well. A few hours would pass, and Izuku would wake up in the nurse's office. Oh, what the hell happened to me? The first thing that he felt was the back of his head in a lot of pain. The last thing that I remember was feeling very angry. Izuku slowly gets out of bed, but then All Might, along with Aizawa, entered the room. Aizawa told Izuku to please sit back down. Izuku obliges. They both would ask Izuku questions like, what was that move called? And why did he almost kill All Might? But Izuku doesn't really remember much of what happened, so he says, I don't remember what happened. The two teachers would share a look, and they would hypothesize that it must be a new ability that causes Izuku to lose control of his fire and himself. So, they tell Izuku what happened, about how he almost killed All Might, and even showed him the footage of his fire quirk going out of control. Izuku would apologize to All Might, desperately wanting his forgiveness. Izuku would also say, look, I'm sorry. It's just, when you threw me to the ground like that, it took me back to that day that Nomu almost killed me. It just traumatizes me, but I really am sorry. All Might would accept his apology, but he would want Izuku to make a promise to him, to always keep a level head when it comes to fighting and life-threatening situations. Yeah, I promise, I'll work on it more. When he said that, suddenly Endeavor entered the room wanting to speak with Izuku alone. After All Might and Aizawa left the room, it was just the two of them. Endeavor starts the conversation. Midoriya, I've been doing some digging around of the stain case. Izuku's shoulder would jolt when he heard his sensei say that. On the night there were about 3 people who described the thing that attacked Stain as a wolf man who did this to him. Endeavor glances over to Izuku as he was pacing back and forth, telling him everything that he had heard. He then slowly walks up to Izuku, kneels down, getting to his eye level, and says, is there something you would like to tell me? Izuku sits up straight and he tells Endeavor what had happened, even telling him about how he tried to turn himself in to the police and them not believing him. After processing everything, he says, I see. Well, I must say I'm very disappointed in you, that you didn't trust me enough to help you. If you'd had simply come to me and asked for help, I would have done anything to help you. You're right, Sensei. I'm sorry. I should have come to you. Well, anyway, you have a while until the next full moon returns. Next time, how about you just come to me, and we'll figure something out. Height, Sensei. Good. But I must say that idea that you had to put contact lenses on that block out the light of the sun, that was a pretty genius idea. Well, thanks. It was actually Shoto's idea. They would both reminisce about what they did and what Izuku taught Shoto and Bakugo their times in the woods. And then we would skip to the next day. Everyone would meet up at the mall. And Bakugo would make sure that things are okay between Izuku and him. Izuku would actually say that everything's okay with him, and he actually thanks Bakugo for stopping him from almost doing what he did to All Might. While at the mall, Izuku, Bakugo, and Shoto went their separate ways to get their things, and for a while, Izuku wandered around, and he found himself in an open spot of the mall where people were present, but he was more focused on his phone, scrolling through something. He immediately, wait a minute. He then heard a voice saying, "Excuse me, can I talk to you for a second?" His senses went off and he immediately knew whose voice that was. He immediately took action. Being as quick as he could, he then reached behind and grabbed Shigaraki's hand that he was about to touch him with, and quickly kneeing him in the stomach, incapacitating him. Then, while still holding his arm, he then twisted it as he got behind him, and he knocked him down to the ground, to the floor. He then knocked him down to the ground. Shigaraki lies there on the ground, yelling, "You cheater!" Izuku then repeatedly punched Shigaraki in the head over and over again until he passed out, making him shut up. Even though he really wanted to do more damage to Shigaraki, he already knew that if he didn't stop, he wouldn't be able to. And so, after that, the police would take him in for questioning, and the classmates would ask Izuku what happened and if he was alright. Izuku would tell them that he's fine, but before he could tell them anything else, the police would take Izuku in for questioning on what this villain wanted to talk to him about. But, unfortunately, Izuku knocked him out before he could say anything to him, so he couldn't really tell the police anything. After all was said and done, Inko then came to the police station to pick up her son. She saw him and ran to him, giving him a hug, embracing him tightly. "Izuku, I don't know if my heart can take another scare like this." Tears were flowing out of Inko's eyes, And Izuku says, "No, Mom, it's okay. We're safe now." He then brings his mom back in for another hug. The image would then move upwards towards the sky, where the stars and waning Gidda's moon was just up ahead. We then slowly transition to what appears to be a rundown gymnasium, with a man with large muscular arms was lifting weights, and another man entered the room wearing a black suit and a mask that resembles a skull with tubes all around it. "What do you want?" asked the bulky man. "I want your help to recruit more people." "And what is it exactly that you're looking for?" "A UA student, from 1A to be specific." "Really? You want some brat over people with more experience?" "Huh, how foolish." "Well, I'm sure you've heard about the beast that, how do you put this gently, put Stain in his place." "Oh, hell yeah. Some people are saying that they saw it and that it looked more stronger than I am. If I had a chance, I'd put that furry bastard in his place and show it who's the real man." "Well, it just so happens to be your lucky day." "Why's that?" "Because that furry bastard, as you mentioned, is a 1A student. And people have hypothesized that his quirk is best used only when there's full moon." "Really?" "Yes. So, you help us get the student, and we'll make sure that you get your chance to put him in his place. All we need is some help, and someone with the right quirk to get it done. Also, I will need your help to get my protege out of captivity." The muscle man then sits up and says, "Good, because I have just the spot with his head on my wall." We then slowly zoom out from an empty spot on the wall with more animal heads that surrounded that empty spot. There had to have been at least hundreds of them before the screen faded to white. And that's the end of part 11 of What If Deku Was a Firewolf. Now, I hope you all enjoyed this What If, and if you made it to the end of this video, consider yourselves #bless. I almost forgot my clothesline there. and I hope to see you all in the next video. Have a nice day.